SITI MAHAT. I am Senior Account Executive of Genting Berhad. I would like to share with you the background company of Genting Berhad. Genting Berhad founded by Tan Sri Lim Gohtong in 1956. After Tan Sri Lim Gohtong imagined to build resorts on top of the mountain in Malaysia, in 1968, Genting incorporated 3 years later. In 1971, Genting Berhad listed in Bursa Saham Malaysia. Genting Berhad is mainly an investment holding and management company. Genting created a few corporations which are Genting Malaysia Berhad, Genting Plantation Berhad and Genting Singapore Limited. Meanwhile, the another two companies which are Genting Energy and Resort World Las Vegas LLC are its principal unlisted subsidiary company. Today, Genting Berhad, led by Tan Sri Lim Gohtong, along leisure hospitality and oil palm plantation, he also expand his company generation into fields of power generation, oil and gas, property development, life science and biotechnology. These business activities operated in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, United States of America, United Kingdom, China, Egypt, Bahamas and India. Under leisure and hospitality, Genting offers a versatile of well-known brands including Genting, Resort World, Genting Grand, Genting Club, Crockpool and Maxims, working with well-known international brand partners such as Universal Studio, Premium Outlets, Zouk, Hard Rock Hotel, Hilton's and renowned international brand partners.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Siti AISYAH binti BAKHTIAR and I am the new Senior Executive of Genting Berhad. Before having a segmental reporting, there are 3 factors to be considered, which is nature of business product and services provided by the company. Genting Berhad have 5 business divisions consist of leisure and hospitality, palm oil plantation, power generation, oil and gas, property development, and lastly is life science and technology biotechnology. The target market for Genting Berhad are customers from the middle and upper income group, which are also coming from various age of groups that makes everyone able to enjoy all the facilities entertainment such as theme park, casinos, and also other accommodation of resorts and hotel provided. The company also use social media platform as their method of distribution for marketing and to promote their business to public. For example, their brand new opening of new attraction of Genting Skyroad theme park early February this year. The existence of managers involved in business activity. Each business segment are controlled by the managers of every segment to ensure the company performance. They are responsible for discussing the operation activities, financial resources, forecast, and plenty of company's operation activity. Third factors to be considered in the availability of information to be presented to the board of directors. Chief of decision maker will make reference to report assessed by the board of directors in making the decision for Genting Berhad, as it contains reliable information and overall performance of the company. There are 2 types of segment for Genting Berhad. First, the geographical segment. Genting Berhad has separated their geographical segment based on location and regions verbally, which consists of Malaysia, the group's country origin, Singapore, Indonesia, China, India, Egypt, United Kingdom, Bahamas, and lastly, United States of America. Now, let's proceed to the second segment, which is business segment. There are 5 business segments of Genting. First, let's start with leisure and hospitality that consists of hotel, theme parks, retail, food and beverage. Second, plantation. This consists of oil palm plantation and palm of mining, which involve mainly in Malaysia and Indonesia. Thirdly, power, which is supply of electric power. Fourth, properties. Properties are consisting of property development and property investment. Last but not least, oil and gas. Each segment are consist of exploration, development, and production of oil and gas. So we move to the next part, chief of decision making. So what is the responsibility? First, of assigning and measuring operational segment performance, develop strategic goals, policies, and guidelines, managing overall company operation. So, who is the decision maker? The decision maker for Genting Berhad is Tan Sri Lim Gohtong as the chairman and chief of executive of Genting Berhad. Next, the second decision maker is president and chief operating officer and executive director, Mr. Tan Kong Han.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Zakwan bin YAZED. I'm accountant executive of Genting Berhad. Here I will explain about the reproduced segmentary report of Genting Berhad. According to MFRS 8 paragraph 5, operating segment is a component of an entity that engage in business activity from which it earn revenue or incurred their expenses, including the inter-segment transaction. It also represents activity that regularly reviewed by the chief operating decision maker for resources allocation and assessing performance, and for which discrete financial information is available. Operating segments are only identified as reportable segment and separately disclosed if they exceed the quantity threshold. The quantity threshold is the 10% threshold test that are the percentage of the total revenue for each segment is divided with the total revenue of all segments. It must be in 10% or more to be considered as reportable and to be separately disclosed. It consists of three quantity thresholds, which are revenue basis, profit or loss basis, and asset basis. The first one is revenue basis. Revenue basis is when the total reported revenue is 10% or more of the combined revenue of all operating segments. The second basis is profit or loss basis, when reported profit or loss is 10% or more than the combined profit or loss, all profitable or losses of operating segment. The last basis is asset basis. It is where the asset reportable is 10% or more than of the combined asset of all operating segment. If some of the operating segment does not meet the 10% test, it must be clarified as non-reportable segment and to be combined with other similar segment that are also below the threshold of significance for the purpose of meet the 10% test. It is included as an all other segment category. For Genting Berhad, we are using the revenue basis to measure the 10% test of the segment. The operating segment of Genting Berhad consists of leisure and hospitality, plantation, power, property, oil and gas, also investment in other. After applying the 10% test, we can conclude that only two operating segments meet the 10% criteria of MFRS 8, which are leisure and hospitality segment 72% and plantation segment 18% as shown in the table. With the percent more than 10%, both segments are considered as reportable and to be disclosed separately in the segmentary report. For the other four segments that do not meet the 10% requirement as it lower than 10% test, it will clarify as non-reportable segment and will be combined on all other segment category in the segmentary report. After determining the reportable segment and non-reportable segment, the entity should ensure that the total external revenue attributable to those reportable segments is at least 75% of the entity's total revenue. The total combining external revenue of reportable segment on 10% test must be divided by the total external revenue of all segments. If it does not meet the 75% threshold, additional reportable segments should be identified, even if they do not meet the 10% of threshold, until at least 75% of the entity's total external revenue is included in its reportable segment. The 75% test of Genting Berhad is calculated by the external revenue of leisure and hospitality segment and also the plantation segment. As the result, we get 90.41%. That means Genting Berhad has been achieved 75% requirement. Therefore, no additional segment to be reported in this segmental report. In order to have 4 reportable segments and 1 minimum non-reportable segment, a new adjustment has been made for all segments in Genting Berhad segmental reports. As per adjustment figure, the increasing of external revenue and inter-segment revenue of each segment effect increasing in the 10% threshold test. So, we now have 4 reportable segments consist of leisure and hospitality, plantation, power, and oil and gas segment. The 2 non-reportable segments consist of property and the investment and other segment. Finally, a new segmental report of Genting Berhad has been produced. As per shown in the table, leisure and hospitality plantation, power and oil and gas segment are separately disclosed as they are reportable segment. Meanwhile, the property and other segment are be calculated as one segment as both segments are failed to meet the 10% test. 75% test also has been made for new adjustment segment, where the result is still more than 75% requirement, which having 96%. No additional segment to be reported for this new adjustment too.
Assalamualaikum. My name is NURHAFIZA binti Muhammad. Now, I'm going to present about the advantages and disadvantages of segment reporting on how the information is used for Genting Berhad. I will start with the advantages first. The first one is transparency. Transparency is one of the most profitable segments. Segment reporting makes it clear which areas contribute to the overall performance and which had a negative impact. As a result, management is consistently prepared to make decisions and identify ways to increase the profit of the other segment. The second one is useful information, enhance evaluation of the fluctuations that may affect the overall figure and can decide if they are sustainable. For example, when a company shows much higher earnings than expected, the segment report shows where those earnings come from, which assists the investor in understanding the company and predicting its future cash flow. Okay, finally, regarding decision making, a financial user should have access to the same information as the decision maker. Therefore, they are able to correctly analyze the data as decision makers. Next is about disadvantages of segment reports. The first disadvantage is data manipulation. If data are presented as management preference, the data will be manipulated, since the manager might have a greater power over the organization's software. For illustration, the manager can modify or manipulate the company's data to attract and convince more investors to invest in the business. Second is data misinterpretation. In the event that inter-segment sales transfer are included, if segment sales figures are greater than consolidated sales figures, user groups will misinterpret the information. The computation of a segment cost is an additional issue that comes with the sales figure. However, it is straightforward to estimate the traceable cost of a segment, whereas the actual difficulty lies in determining the proportion of a cost share by two or more segments that apply to a segment. Last but not least, the emphasis is solely on the present moment. It is possible the short-term data presented in segment reporting are overstated. This is because the company gives more emphasis to short-term figures and give less emphasis to figures that have a long-term impact on their companies.
Now, I will explain about the basis of preparing the interim report of Genting Berhad. It is compliant with the FAR570 as well as paragraph 9.22 of Bursa Malaysia Security Berhad listing requirement. The financial statement of the group and the company have been prepared in accordance with the Malaysian Financial Reporting Standard (MFRS), International Financial Reporting Standard (IFRS), and comply with the requirement of the Company Act 2016 in Malaysia. Let's continue to the accounting policy used by Genting Berhad to prepare their interim report. First policy are MFRS 116, Property, Plant and Equipment. The property, plant and equipment is stated at cost less accumulated depreciation and accumulated impairment loss. Cost of the other PPE includes expenditure that directly attribute to the acquisition of the items. To summarize the depreciation of PPE, Genting Berhad is using the straight line method to allocate their cost to their residual value over their estimated useful life as shown in the figure. The second accounting policy that Genting Berhad use in their accounting is MFRS 140, Investment Property. Investment property of Genting Berhad consists of investment in land and building that are held for long-term rental yield and or for capital appreciation and are not occupied by the groups. It is initially measured at cost, including direct transaction costs and borrowing costs if the investment property meet the definition of a qualifying asset. Subsequent expenditure is capitalized to the asset's carrying amount only when it is probable that future economic benefit associated with the expenditure will flow to the group and the cost of the item can be measured reliably. All other repair and maintenance costs are expensed when it is incurred. When part of an investment property is replaced, the carrying amount of the replaced part is derecognized. Where an indication of impairment exists, the carrying amount of the asset is assessed and written down immediately to its recoverable amount. Investment property is derecognized either when it has been disposed of or when the investment property is permanently withdrawn from use and no future economic benefit is expected from its retirement from use.
Next, based on MFRS stating the types of interim report that prepared by Genting Berhad are quarterly report, it means that the company produces the interim report for every 3 months. The statement that are required to produce a condensed consolidated statement profit or loss, condensed consolidated of other comprehensive income, condensed consolidated statement of financial positions, condensed consolidated of changes in equity, and last but not least, condensed consolidated of statement cash flow.
Now, we're moving on to the current and comparative period of each statement prepared as under MFRS 134 interim report. That starts with statement of financial position for current period. For current period is 1st April 2022 until 30th June 2022, 3 months, and comparative period for statement of financial position is 1st January until 1st January 2021 until 31st December 2021. Second is statement of changes in equity or known as SITI. For current is 1st April 2022 until 30th June 2022, 6 month ended, and for comparative period is 1st January 2021 until 30th June 2021, 6 month ended. Then, statement of cash flow. For current is 1st April 2022 until 30th June 2022, 6 month ended, and for comparative period is 1st Jan 2021 until 30th June 2021, 6 month ended. Lastly is statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income for current period 1st April 2022 until 30th June 2022, quarter ended. For comparative 1st April 2021 until 30th June 2021, quarter ended. Next, cumulative period for current is 1 January 2022 until 30th June 2022, 6 months ended. Comparative period 1 January 2021 until 30th June 2021, 6 months ended.
There are 2 adjustments that can be made to the interim report. The first is on the inventory. The value of inventory as at 30th June 2022 is RM 791,871,000. The net realizable value is expected to be around RM 791,771,000. Okay, Genting Berhad, as we know, should compare the lower cost of inventories and the net realizable value to determine the value of inventories. Genting Berhad should therefore adjust the value of inventory to net realizable value RM 791,771,000, which is less than the cost of inventory of RM 791,871,000. Okay, the second adjustment is trade receivable as at 30th June 2022. The amount of trade receivable on that day is RM 2,480,601,000. Genting Berhad should estimate 95% of collection on the trade receivable, which is amounted to RM 2,398,570,950. The remaining 5% amounting to RM 142,350,000 should be classified as uncollectible debt and will appear in profit and loss as debt for doubtful debt. Okay, Genting Berhad should thus reduce this value of the piece trade receivable from RM 2,840,000 601,000 to RM 2,698,570,950. Okay, now we are referring to the statement of financial position before and after adjustment. As we can see, the inventory value will be reduced approximately RM 100,000 from RM 791,871,000 to RM 791,771,000. It is because we adjusted the value of considering net realizable value. The value trade receivable may be decreased from RM 2,840,601,000 to 2,698,570,950. Since we reduced the 5% of uncollectible debt, RM 142,350,000, we can see that the number of trade receivable is more reliable. That's all from us. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.